Hi guys, my name is Jessica Hayes and I have been a professional makeup artist for over 15 years now. I am a freelance makeup artist. I have also worked with a ton of different cosmetic brands. So this video today is going to be me sharing my experiences with you on how to be a clean makeup artist. So I've been wanting to create this video for so long, and it seems like right now when we're all heading back to work after isolation from the coronavirus, this is the perfect time to make a video on how to be the cleanest makeup artist that you can be. While I've been in the industry, I've definitely met a lot of makeup artists that hold a really high standard to cleanliness, but I have unfortunately also met a lot of makeup artists that do not hold that standard of cleanliness. So I did my training through Napoleon Purtis in Australia, and they definitely taught me a lot about cleanliness, but the way that I truly learned how to be a hardcore clean makeup artist was working at a MAC counter. They do not let anything slide at the MAC counter. Being such a huge corporate brand, they are very liable when they're letting customers try makeup, so they were always the top tier of cleanliness. So luckily for me, I worked with MAC for around 5 years, and I have been able to pass those cleanliness traits along in my professional career. So I'm going to break it down into different product categories and what is the best way to use those in a clean, hygienic way. So before I start, I'm just going to wipe down my surface with a hospital grade disinfectant, and then I'm going to place down some paper towel on my surface, and I'm going to change that paper towel in between each client. If you don't want to be wasteful, I would suggest getting the black salon towels. That's what I usually use. Make sure you use one between each client, and then you can go and launder them at home. So there are a few tools that are very important in these next few steps, and that is a palette and a palette knife. So the palette knife is used to scrape out any cream or gel products, and then you can use that palette to put these products onto. It's important to use a palette that you can easily clean instead of the back of your hand. I also have this little palette which can be attached to your wrist, which makes it really convenient, especially if you're in the habit of using the back of your hands, which I definitely am. So the palette and palette knife you can basically get at any art supply store, but I got these ones from Cosmetics. For using these, I'm just going to spray it down with a little bit of the Beauty So Clean Cosmetic Sanitizer Mist. You can use alcohol. You can also use a brush cleaner that has alcohol in it, and just give it a wipe down before you start your work. This is something that I like to do in front of the client as well, so that they know that you're being super clean. So now that my palette is nice and clean, let's use a cream foundation. Today, for the sake of demonstrating, I am going to be using all of my personal products. So if they look like they've been used and not scraped out, that would be why, because they are my own products and this is not my freelance kit. Let's take, for instance, this cream foundation. I'm going to get my sanitized palette knife, and I'm just gonna grab out a little bit of that cream foundation. The reason why we're going to sanitize that knife first is because if that's got anything nasty on it, we're going to be putting that straight into our cream foundation. Pop that on our palette right there, and then we can use that directly from the palette onto the client. Easy peasy. For a liquid product, you can just squirt that straight onto the palette like that and use it directly from the palette to the client. A lot of makeup artists use the back of the hand. I know I have done that for so many years, but it's a lot cleaner to be using a palette. You're able to sanitize it correctly as well, and as gross as it sounds, on the back of your hand skin cells obviously, and you don't really want them mixing in and then being put onto your client. It's just a cleaner option. Basically, for any cream products, we are going to be using this similar technique. I have a gel eyeliner here. I'm just going to take that palette knife, scoop out a little bit of that gel liner, and then pop it onto my palette right there, and then use it with a brush straight onto the client. Unfortunately, for felt tip liners, there's no proper way to really sanitize them. When I worked at MAC, and also when I worked for Kat Von D as well, we had felt tip liners, and what we used to do was get a little jar of alcohol and dip the felt tip liner in them, but it will very quickly ruin your product. So personally, in my freelance kit, I just keep gel liners Or one of my favorite liners is the Balm Swing, and this is like a typical old school liner. And what I can do is just take it out, pop it onto my little palette like so, and then I can take my brush and dip directly into the palette and use that on the client that way. So let's talk about pencils next. So sharpening a pencil will get rid of the outer layer that you've used on a client, but when you think about it, if you've used this liner on Susie and then not cleaned it off, and then you put that pencil inside this sharpener, Susie's lip germs are going to be inside that sharpener. So the best thing to do is to have just a little cup of alcohol. You can dip a Q-tip into the alcohol, use it to clean out the sharpener well. Should be no color left on the Q-tip when you're done with cleaning it. And then take the pencil, just quickly dunk it into the alcohol, wipe it off on a little bit of tissue, and then you can go ahead and sharpen that pencil. So then Susie's germs are no longer inside the sharpener, and then you can go and use that liner on Karen now. So that was a sharpening pencil. We also have a lot of twist up pencils now. To clean these, what I do is I twist up the pencil kind of far. I'm then going to dip the pencil tip into alcohol. I'll then clean that tip off. You want to make sure you hold the pencil down this way so that the alcohol doesn't run into the canister of the product. So I'm going to wipe off that extra alcohol, wind it down, and then you're ready to use that on your client. Another very common thing that we use in makeup is powder products. So how to use a loose powder properly on a client. A lot of people will just tip it into the top of their lid and then use a brush to dip into that lid. But then the next time you go to dip into that lid, Susie's face germs are in there, and when you put them on Karen, she's going to get those germs. The best way to do it is to just take the product, tap a little bit onto your paper towel if you're using it. If you're using a towel, just grab a tissue and tap that product onto the tissue, and then you can use it straight from the tissue and onto the face cleanly. Now, if you have any loose glitters or loose pigments like this, you can also use it like that. Just tip a little bit onto the palette and use it straight off the palette or onto a little bit of tissue onto your workspace. So for pressed powder products such as highlighters, eyeshadow palettes, single eyeshadows, any kind of pressed powder, there's two ways to do this. So you can get a little spoolie and just agitate the top of the product and then tip that onto your makeup palette, and then you can use that product directly off the palette with a brush. Personally, this is too much effort for me, and especially when we're trying to be quick, that's just not really an option. I do have another option. There's two cosmetic sanitizers on the market that I know of. This is the one that I use, Beauty So Clean. I know that it's cruelty free. There is another one called C3, which I'm not 100% sure on its animal testing status, but this is also a very similar product. Basically, any eyeshadow palette, any pressed powder, maybe pressed face powder, pressed blush, any pressed powder at all, you can grab this product. It's a cosmetic sanitizer mist, and you just sanitize that, let it down to dry, and then once the product is dry after a few minutes, you're safe then to use it on another client. The reason why we need to use something like this is because when you're doing eyeshadow, how often do you only dip into that product once? Hardly ever. You're constantly getting it from the palette, putting it on the client's eye, and then returning it back to the palette. So from doing that, you're taking whatever's on Susie's eye there and dipping that into your palette. So it's really important to get a product like this, or if you don't have the access to that, you'll just need to decanter your powder products onto a palette instead. So let's talk about lipsticks. Right now, as we all know, liquid lipsticks are a really hot trend. They pretty much work like a lip gloss. They're in the canister that a lip gloss would come in, so it's just a little doe foot applicator. You cannot use this applicator directly on the client. What you want to do is just roll that applicator onto a little palette, like so, and then use your clean lip brush, which gives you a better, more precise application anyways, onto the client from that. This is exactly how you're going to handle lip gloss as well. So take your lip gloss, for instance, you're going to roll it. Make sure you're rolling it onto a clean part of the palette. If we go ahead and we've dipped into this a few times on someone's lips and we go ahead and pop our lip gloss over the top of it, it's obviously not going to be clean. If this is something that you can't keep track of, I recommend wiping down your palette in between each product. So we're going to pop that lip gloss on the back, and then you can use your lip brush to put that directly onto the client. Now for lipsticks, what you want to do is just take the product, grab your clean palette knife, you want to roll that product up a little bit, scrape a little bit of the lipstick off like that, and then pop it onto your palette. This is all assuming that this lipstick has never touched somebody else's lips. If it has touched somebody else's lips, you're going to pop it in my little cup of alcohol, completely submersed in the alcohol. Leave it for a few seconds and then wipe that off on a little tissue before I can cleanly use that on a client again. Always with all of my lipstick products, they are never touching the client's lips. I'm always decantering the product and putting it on the back of my palette, just so that I don't have to ever worry about putting my lipsticks in alcohol. I'm just going to wipe off that palette, take a little bit of the Beauty Clean, and a paper towel. So another product that is very popular are cream contours and highlights. Basically, we're going to treat them like we would a cream foundation or gel eyeliner, and we're just going to scrape off a little bit of that product from the tip of it and then pop it onto our palette right there. And then you can use your brush just to mix it around a little bit and warm it up, and then use it directly onto the client. All right, next up, let's talk about something that seems so very obvious. You never, ever share a mascara with anyone. If our mama wore makeup, she taught us that from a very early age. Just don't share mascara with your friends. So it would seem very obvious to me that you would always use a spoolie when using a mascara on a client. So what you're going to do is take a spoolie, you're going to dip in, and then you're going to use that on the client. If the client needs 2 coats of mascara, you're going to take a new spoolie and throw this one away. You're never ever going to use a spoolie and then double dip back into the product, because that's going to just add any germs that you've taken and put it into a cream product where bacteria is naturally going to flourish. This to me is the number one thing that I see a lot of makeup artists slipping up on, and it's so obvious to a client. I feel like everyone that's ever worn makeup just knows that you don't share mascara with people. So if you see a makeup artist doing this, call them out, because it's not okay. Speaking of spoolies, yes, this is wasteful. There is really no way around it. There are some little fan brushes that you can put mascara on with, but I'm going to tell you now, they're crap. They're great for fashion photography if you want just a coating of mascara and no actual lift, but unfortunately you do need this shape of mascara wand to really get through the lashes. These mascara wands I've bought in bulk so long ago, but next time I buy them, I have seen some that have bamboo ends to them, which seems a little more environmentally friendly rather than a total plastic spoolie. There actually is a foundation that you can donate your old spoolies to, and they actually clean out little wildlife that have been affected by oil spills, so I will find that and leave that link below. So another thing that we're going to use a spoolie for is eyebrow mascara or eyebrow gel, clear or tinted. You can just dip straight into that, and obviously you're only going to be able to dip once before you do need another spoolie. Another thing that I use spoolies for is to do eyebrow shaping. If you are doing eyebrow shaping, it's really great to use these to comb up the hairs. As you know, if you've ever done any eyebrow shaping, which includes pulling the little hairs out of the brow to create a shape, some makeup artists do this as part of their service. So sometimes when you pull out a very thick hair, it can leave a little spot of blood. So it's very important to only use one spoolie per client. You cannot use the same dirty spoolie on another client. There are some brands that have these little eyebrow spoolies, but these are for personal use only. If you are doing eyebrow shaping, there definitely is the chance that you could maybe not see that little speck of blood, but bloodborne pathogens is something that we need to take very seriously if we are doing eyebrow shaping. So you must use a new spoolie in between each client, no exceptions. That being said, if you are doing eyebrow shaping while you're doing freelance makeup, it's really important to have something like Barbicide. What you can do is just take a little container and you're going to dilute this down according to the label. So you need to soak your tweezers for at least 10 minutes. This is the contact time that it takes to kill any bloodborne pathogens before using them on the next client. Next up, clean brushes. This probably should have been the first thing that I talked about because it is a very obvious thing that we should have as makeup artists is clean brushes. My personal brushes are always very neglected. I hate cleaning brushes with a passion, but I have never, ever used a dirty brush from one client to another. That is something that we should all pride ourselves on as makeup artists, is having our brushes clean. It doesn't matter if the client's face is clean. You don't know what's going on there. If you've completely cleansed the client's face and then you're using that brush and then taking it to another model or another bridesmaid, another client, this brush must be clean, regardless of whether you've cleaned the client's face first. There are a lot of great brush cleaning solutions. This one is the Ofra one. I like this because it's just a teeny tiny little bottle. This is great for freelance. So you're just going to spray that onto some paper towel. But I always use paper towel to clean it. Tissue is just going to ball up and get really crumply. Another great brand that has brush cleaner is Cinema Secrets. They come in massive big jugs like this. That's usually what I keep at my workstation at the salon that I work at. We go through brush cleaner a lot, so it's really good to have it in bulk. The reason why I don't use just straight alcohol onto my brushes is because alcohol, as you know, is very drying and it can ruin your brushes. So if you use a brush cleansing solution, it's usually got a little bit of conditioning or something in it for your brushes that isn't going to totally ruin them. So one thing that I've definitely heard from makeup artists is that they just don't have time to clean the brushes, and this just isn't acceptable at all. If you don't have time to clean the brushes, what I do is I have pretty much about 8 sets of brushes that I can use in between clients without having to stop and take a brush break. Yes, I realize that that is expensive and it is a privilege to be able to have that many brushes. I have been doing makeup for a really long time, so fortunately I've had a lot of time to build up my collection of brushes. But if your excuse is that you do not have time to clean brushes in between clients and models, you need to make the time. What you don't have time for is someone bad-mouthing your professional career because you haven't been clean or hygienic towards a client or a model. What you don't have time for is a lawsuit for someone getting some insane infection in their eye or lip. Trust me, it is not worth it. So I really hope that this has been helpful for you. I know that in today's day and age, we have a lot of self-taught makeup artists, and maybe some of them just weren't taught these cleanliness approaches. It is extremely important to keep up good health and hygiene for our clients. There is really no exception to a dirty birdie makeup artist. It's disrespectful and shameful to our profession, especially in this time where we're all so stressed and worried about cleanliness. So I'm just going to do a little bit of recap. So any creams or liquids, use a palette knife, scrape off and put it onto your clean palette. Powders you can use directly out of the palette if you wish, but you need to be using something like Beauty So Clean or C3 to sanitize those palettes afterwards. Any non-porous tools that we use, if it's coming into contact with bloodborne pathogens, we need to be soaking them in Barbicide. If it's not coming into contact with bloodborne pathogens, we need to be spraying them down with alcohol and wiping them off before we use it on another product or another client. Mascaras, lip glosses, use disposable tools for these, or for lip glosses you can use the same action that we use with any cream product, which is decantering them onto a palette and using a lip brush to put onto the client. And last but not least, clean your brushes. It's so easy. If you don't have time to clean your brushes, you need to make time, or like I said, have a few different sets that you can rely on. Your clients know when you're using dirty brushes on them. Please don't bring down the professional makeup industry by using dirty brushes on clients. I really hope that this has been informative to some of you. If you have any other tips or tricks, or maybe I've left something else out, please feel free to have a little discussion about it in the comments box below. Ask me questions. If anyone else wants to chime in with tips, please go ahead. We're all in this together to create a really clean and pristine workspace for our clients. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you found it helpful, please give me a thumbs up. If you want to subscribe, I have vegan and cruelty-free beauty tutorials on this channel. Thanks for tuning in, guys. I'm Jessica Hayes, and I hope you have a wonderful week.